welcome back to Sins and Wins, where we look at the highest and lowest rated episodes of a show and determine if those episodes are a sin against the series or a win for it. Today, we will be talking about Miraculous, Tales of Ladybug and Cat Noir, which began airing on September 1st, 2015, and currently sits at 132 episodes and 4 specials. In celebration of the Season 6 premiere, we're going to be reflecting on the first 5 seasons of this series before we enter this new era of Miraculous. A quick reminder for the rules determining the top and bottom 5 episodes: ratings come from IMDb, multi-part episodes are combined into one, and clip show episodes are not included, so we will not be talking about Stormy Weather 2 today. With that, let's get into the first sin. Sin number 5 is Season 1's Rogercop with a 6.8 out of 10, originally airing in South Korea on October 20th, 2015. The episode opens on career day in Miss Boustier's class with the students' parents coming in to talk about their jobs. Plag mistakes Chloe's bracelet for a box of Camembert and gets his head stuck in the bracelet, causing Chloe to accuse Marinette of stealing the bracelet, and Mayor Bourgeois demanding that Officer Roger search Marinette's belongings. When he refuses, Roger is fired and akumatized into Rogercop and goes around Paris punishing lawbreakers, eventually taking over Paris and labeling Ladybug and Cat Noir as outlaws. The heroes defeat him, Chloe finds her bracelet in her bag, and Roger gets promoted to lieutenant. Honestly, the biggest reason I don't like this episode is the B-plot of Marinette's classmates trying to investigate and figure out who stole Chloe's bracelet. It's annoying and unengaging. Chloe being entitled and bratty is occasionally done in a way that makes for compelling plot points. However, in this episode, she's just annoying and the means for Roger to get akumatized. I also generally don't like Roger as a character, so him being unjustly fired is a valid reason to get akumatized, but I just don't really feel bad for him. As far as Rogercop as an akumatized villain goes, he kinda sucks. Back when I was doing rating Miraculous villains, I gave him a 6 out of 10 because his power is decent, but his design is kind of atrocious. Plus, his robot voice is really grating. I hate listening to this man talk. The flying car sequence is kind of fun, but none of the other fight sequences particularly stand out. This episode does have a fun little moment of Cat Noir dancing as a distraction.
Something about Paris just makes you want to dance.
Otherwise, Rogercop is a pretty boring episode, so I agree that it deserves to be labeled as a sin. Win number 5 is Season 4, Episode 18, Wishmaker, with a 9.2 out of 10, originally airing in the United States on August 7th, 2021. Funnily enough, Wishmaker also opens with Marinette's class talking about careers, but this time it's in preparation for the Career Expo, where the students have the opportunity to try and figure out what career they want to pursue. Adrien and Marinette are having similar but opposite crises about what they want to do. Adrien has no idea what he wants to pursue because he's always done what his father has told him to, and Marinette wants to do so many different things at once that she feels completely overwhelmed. Luca has a little heart-to-heart with them and encourages them to listen to their inner music, which is super sweet. Meanwhile, Alec is hosting yet another reality show dedicated to mocking others' career choices, and he is so moved by each person's words that he realizes he's made fun of others his whole life in order to cope with his insecurities. Alec, feeling like he's wasted his life, is akumatized into Wishmaker, who has the power to make childhood dreams come true. Which we need a second to appreciate Wishmaker's fit, because he is serving absolute cunt. When Ladybug realizes that Wishmaker's power would likely reveal her and Cat Noir's identity, she recruits Luca as Viperian to give them that second chance in case anything goes wrong. Spoiler alert! Things do go wrong. Luca very quickly learns both Ladybug and Cat Noir's identities when each of them are hit by Wishmaker's power, but decides to keep the fact that he knows their identities a secret from Ladybug for some reason. My guess is this is because he didn't want to add another thing to Marinette's plate, or because he knew he would have to leave France once it came to light that he knew, I don't know. But the episode ends with Alec's new show, Live Your Childhood Dream, where he has finally embraced his true, authentic self. This episode is so good for so many reasons. To start, Alec's journey of self-love is delightful. He's been a recurring character since the very first episode, and to see him given such a heartwarming character arc is so sweet. The overall message of Wishmaker is taking the time you need to figure out who you are, and it's okay if it takes a while for you to understand what you truly want. We not only see this with Alec, but with Adrien and Marinette. I adore the Marinette, Luca, and Adrien trio. Their friendship is so wholesome. Giving Luca a violin was such a correct choice. It fits him super well. I also just generally love Luca as a character. He's iconic in this episode. Do you know who else is iconic in this episode? Jagged Stone.
Hey! Hi there, son.
Dad? Jagged Stone?
Croco Jagged is such a good and silly bit and highlights Luca rebuilding that relationship with him, which is really nice. This episode generally has a lot of meme-worthy moments, which balances it out pretty nicely with the more emotional story beats.
Look! I'm a cucumber!
But Dad, crocodiles know how to swim.
I didn't when I was a kid.
But then we of course have the identity reveals. The knitting fairy design is so cute. I've been meaning to draw her since this episode came out, but I haven't gotten around to it because I'm really bad at actually sitting down and drawing the things that I want to. I kind of forgot how strong the sad Adrian stuff is in season 4. The fact that he just stands there and lets himself get hit by Wishmaker because he doesn't know what his childhood dream is, and then it turns out he just wanted to be what his parents wanted him to be, is kind of devastating. It also plays into why the season 5 finale kind of pissed me off, but this video isn't about season 5. Giving Luca this knowledge was something I certainly didn't expect, and I think it had a lot of potential for interesting plot points. Unfortunately, we didn't get any follow-through from this until season 5, and the fact that Ephemeral takes place after Wishmaker is infuriating because Luca could have easily prevented that whole mess from occurring. And that's really my only issue with this episode. In the grand scheme of things, Luca learning Ladybug and Cat Noir's identity definitely could have been executed better, but I feel like that's how most things go with the show anyway, so I commend this bold choice. Wishmaker is undeniably a win for Miraculous Ladybug. I absolutely adore this episode and the role it plays in Marinette and Adrian's character development. Sin number 4 is season 4 episode 20, Qilin, with a 6.7 out of 10, originally airing in the United States on February 12th, 2022. I think I'm gonna dive right into discussing this episode because the plot is pretty straightforward and it caused a lot of backlash in the Miraculous community when it first came out. A friend that I met through being a Miraculous fan hasn't watched a single episode after Qilin because of how much it upset her, and I've seen similar reactions from several fans of the series. The premise of Qilin is basically that Marinette and her mom get on a bus together, and Marinette borrows Sabine's purse to buy her a late Mother's Day gift. While Marinette isn't on the bus, there's a random ticket inspection, and Sabine, without the tickets and her ID, is arrested for traveling illegally and accused of lying about having a daughter to cover up the fact that she was breaking the law. So why was this episode so poorly received? The biggest complaint was that it had some underlying racism that wasn't handled well. This is really the first episode in the series that focuses on Sabine, and a lot of what we see highlighted is directly tied to Chinese culture. This isn't a bad thing in isolation, and it's actually really nice to see that variety of culture highlighted, but the biggest issue with this being the only episode to focus on Sabine and her culture is the way that the rest of the episode plays out. Sabine is arrested because she was technically riding the bus illegally when Marinette stepped off. However, the random inspector guy and Roger treat her with such unbelievable disrespect, dismissing everything she says either because they think she's lying, or in Roger's case, he's so obsessed with the law that he has zero empathy. The lines that are said in reaction to Sabine that over-exaggerate her behavior definitely read as having underlying prejudice.
Watch out, she's getting aggressive! She's getting aggressive!
What was she like before she got akumatized?
Terrifying, really stubborn, and a liar.
It must be Marinette. I have to answer. She must be worried.
You never know. She might have some dangerous stuff in there.
Although this episode never directly says that Sabine is treated this way because of her race, the way various characters talk about her feels racially motivated. When examining how Sabine being Chinese was deliberately highlighted at the start of this episode, the extreme reaction of the police to her akumatization says a lot subtextually. We have never seen this level of police involvement in an akumatization, and the military level reaction to Qilin is extreme in a way that parallels real-world discriminatory practices against racial minorities. It's also clear that there was intention for this episode to address these issues with the way that Thomas Astruc accepts praise for what Qilin was trying to do. Even without this intention, it's at minimum quite careless that the episode that features the police this heavily is when an Asian woman is akumatized. Ultimately, the problem with this episode is that it attempted to address a significant issue in racial profiling, but did so in a way that was pretty careless, and thus the impact was quite harmful. But even beyond the problematic implications, it's just kind of a boring episode, so Qilin deserves its label as a sin. Win number 4 is the season 4 finale, Shadow Moth's final attack, with a 9.2 out of 10. Part 1, Risk, has a 9.0 out of 10, originally airing in the United States on March 5th, 2022. Risk is mostly set up for Strikeback, so I'll be a bit more concise when talking about it. The episode centers around Shadow Moth realizing Ladybug never takes any risks, akumatizing a child with the power to make everyone in Paris greater risk takers. Meanwhile, Adrian learns he will be going on a week-long perfume ad photo shoot with Lila. Because of the risk power affecting them, Marinette makes multiple multiple attempts to confess her feelings to Adrian, while Adrian opens up to Marinette about hating the photo shoots and not wanting to model anymore. Felix offers to trade places with Adrian so he can investigate Gabriel being Shadow Moth and acquire the Peacock Miraculous. Meanwhile, Shadow Moth creates a giant senti monster called Strikeback and initiates the next phase of his plan. Like I mentioned earlier, this episode is primarily setup, but is still very enjoyable, putting a lot of parts into motion for the season finale. I love seeing Felix highlighted here. It's kind of hilarious the way that he mocks Adrian.
Oh, Natalie, there was a problem with the car, so I walked home, but I forgot my keys. That's not how I talk.
We also get a lot of senti monster evidence in this episode, specifically with the rings.
I'm your father, and I'm telling you to...
Adrian, it's time to go.
Yes, Natalie.
There's also an iconic moment with Kagami telling off Adrian for not standing up to his father, which encourages him to go back home to try and talk to him. The episode ends in a really weird place where Adrian finds the lens that Felix was using to investigate his father, and then it just fades to black. What's even more annoying about this cliffhanger is that Adrian finding the lens leads absolutely nowhere. It just serves as a way to tease the audience. Another part of the episode I find aggravating is that nobody believes Marinette when she tells them Adrian doesn't want to model anymore, claiming her judgment is being clouded by jealousy. Otherwise, it's a decent episode that doesn't particularly stand out on its own, but the way it sets up the finale is fantastic. Part 2, Strikeback, has a 9.4 out of 10 and premiered in Brazil on March 10th, 2022. Felix takes the Peacock Miraculous that he found in Gabriel Agrest's safe and tries to transform, discovering that it was a fake. With Paris under attack by Strikeback, a senti monster that can replicate superpowers from the Miraculous, Ladybug and her allies do their best to keep civilians out of danger, including Risk. Rena Furtive notices the Risk marks on the backs of everyone's necks, cluing the heroes into why everyone has been acting so reckless. Since Felix, believed to be Adrian, didn't have the mark on his neck, Ladybug decides he would be the perfect ally to join their mission to recover Risk's akumatized object. As Flaremitable, Felix helps defeat Risk and Strikeback while also touching Ladybug's yo-yo with the ball. He offers Shadow Moth every Miraculous other than Ladybug and Cat Noir's in exchange for the Peacock Miraculous. By the time Ladybug realizes she's been tricked by Felix, all of the Miraculous are already gone. Cat Noir comforts Ladybug after she tells him what happened, and Paris cheers them on as they vow to defeat Monarch once and for all. The first thing I want to talk about in this episode is Cat Noir, because we've seen him being pushed aside throughout the season by Ladybug in favor of the other heroes. There's a specific argument between Ladybug and Cat Noir where he claims they'll never get akumatized that perfectly highlights the lack of communication between the two of them.
I'll never get akumatized.
You don't know what you're talking about.
Maybe because you never talked to me about anything.
The very end of the episode highlights how, despite losing every other Miraculous, Ladybug still has Cat Noir. He's always been there and always will be, and we get a parallel to the umbrella scene where Marinette fell for Adrian, with the rain and thunder symbolizing falling in love. This kicks off the love square reversal we see highlighted at the start of season 5, but fundamentally showcases how Ladybug realizes she can rely on Cat Noir and she doesn't have to try to do everything on her own, which is huge growth for her. We also need to talk about the Pennybug fit because I love this design. I'm not really a fan of the puffy sleeves, but otherwise she looks really good. So many of Ladybug's unified Miraculous designs are gorgeous, and Pennybug is no exception. But my favorite part of this season finale is the antagonists. I always thoroughly enjoy when Hawkmoth has a really solid plan to defeat the heroes and seeing it be an effective challenge for them. Having Risk as a secret akumatized villain that snuck under the radar and led Ladybug to make the mistake of giving the dog Miraculous to Felix is genius. Monarch acquiring all of the Miraculous in the trade with Felix was incredibly bold and unexpected and was such a compelling way to kick off season 5. Ladybug having a panic attack and mental breakdown as a result of this mistake was also really well portrayed. In general, the emotional stakes throughout the season and into the finale were so engaging and surprisingly well done. Overall, Shadow Moth's final attack does a really good job of concluding a lot of the key story elements from throughout season 4 and setting up season 5. Risk and Strikeback are phenomenal episodes. This is the best season finale in Miraculous and definitely qualifies as a win. Sin number 3 is season 3 episode 12, Christmaster, with a 6.3 out of 10, originally airing in Canada on February 8th, 2019. Marinette is babysitting Nino's little brother Chris, and when he discovers her hidden presence for Adrian, she lies to cover it up by claiming to be one of Santa's elves. Chris is akumatized into Christmaster, bringing toys to life and trying to capture Santa in order to get his Christmas gift early. I rewatched this episode for this video, and it was quite literally the first time I've seen this episode again since it came out nearly 6 years ago. There is so much I hate about this episode, so I should just dive right into it. First of all, the plot hook being the fact that Marinette has a trunk in her room filled with Adrian's birthday gifts for the next 35 years? Hey, what?
I can't tell you that these are the gifts I've made for Adrian's next 35 birthdays, because you'd tell your brother Nino, and he'd tell Adrian, and Adrian would think that I'm totally crazy! Wait, maybe I am.
Like, yes, Marinette is obsessive, but this level of obsession is not even remotely logical, which makes it even more annoying than Marinette's characterization already is. We also learn in this episode that Ladybug is canonically the best behaved kid in the world, which we all know is a load of bullshit. There are so many other characters that are better behaved than Ladybug in this show, considering they don't break into their crush's house on multiple occasions. Something else I despise about this episode, and I guess the Miraculous universe as a whole, is not only the fact that Santa canonically exists, but that everyone is just so chill about it. Like, oh yeah, there's Santa, I wonder why he's here when it isn't Christmas, oh well. Huh? But now we need to talk about Chris, because I generally hate the children in this show because their personalities are all the same obnoxious, insufferable characterization, and I cannot stand it.
What's wrong, little dude?
I want it to be Christmas right now!
There was exactly one episode where the kids don't piss me off, and we'll actually be talking about that episode later in this video. But Chris immediately pissed me off with all of his whining and entitlement. What makes it even worse is that Chris is quite literally rewarded for his behavior when Ladybug asks Santa for Chris's gift in order to appease him. And the final lesson is more about Marinette lying and causing this whole mess, as opposed to, hey kids, don't be an entitled brat. Beyond the bad premise of this episode and the harmful message of whine until you get what you want, there are generally a lot of really weird moments and bad writing throughout. Ladybug asks for Santa's hat and immediately smells it. They use the hat so Cat Noir has Santa's scent, and then the toys think Cat Noir is Santa, but there was no reason for her to smell it. What are we doing? In the final confrontation with Christmaster, Ladybug keeps telling Cat Noir, we need to save your cataclysm for the snow globe. Hey, last time I checked, it's pretty easy to smash a snow globe on the ground. It's honestly more breakable than most akumatized objects in this show that they just throw on the ground or stomp on to break. Admittedly, some of the writing in this episode is so bad and corny as a result of the Santa Claus plot that it actually ends up being kind of hilarious.
I'm with Santa Claus. We've taken refuge in the ice rink. It disappeared! Santa Claus!
You stole my Christmas presents, Ladybug, but my birthday's coming soon.
Honestly, a fun part of the early seasons of this show are all of Hawkmoth's lines when he's defeated, because they're meant to be intimidating, but so many of them are not at all. Christmaster is such a bad episode. I have hated it since day one, and it is undeniably a sin for this series. Win number 3 is season 5, episode 18, Emotion, with a 9.3 out of 10, originally airing in Brazil on November 21st, 2022. The episode opens with Adrian and Marinette getting ice cream together, but their date is interrupted by Adrian being summoned by his father without telling her why. Marinette learns it's for an annual formal called the Diamonds Dance, where the most rich and powerful families show off their kids. With Zoe's help, Marinette sneaks into the dance to tell Adrian he doesn't need to keep things from her. However, it turns out Felix took Adrian's place and he transforms into Argos, the new holder of the Peacock Miraculous. Using a sentimonster called the Red Moon, Argos makes everyone in the world except for Adrian and Kagami disappear. When he realizes how devastated Adrian and Kagami are at everyone's disappearance, Argos agrees to bring everybody back. Emotion provides us with a bit more insight into Felix's motivations and heavily implies that he, Adrian, and Kagami are all sentimonsters. This is supported by how devastated he is to destroy the Red Moon and how he refers to her as his sister.
Can you forgive me, my friend, my sister? I release you from existence.
I sort of love the song that Argos sings as well. It's really fun. Bryce Papenbrook's performance as Felix is really solid. He does a great job of portraying the emotion. We also see more of the Agrest and Tsurugi alliance in full force, as well as the Lila and Kagami friendship. The end of the episode reveals that Lila knows Monarch's identity, which I don't think we know how she learned it, she just kind of knows it. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not really a fan of Marinette stalking her boyfriend to this dance, even if her intentions were good. It's her biggest character flaw, and they don't seem to be wanting to get rid of it anytime soon. Other than the Argos specific stuff, I'm not super invested in the plot of Emotion, but I think the focus on Felix's character is enough to qualify it as a win for this series. Sin number 2 is season 4 episode 19, Simpleman, with a 6.3 out of 10, originally airing in Brazil on September 28th, 2021. Marinette is once again babysitting, but this time she's babysitting Manon, Chris, and Alia's sisters all at once. When Adrien calls her and asks for help with a problem at his photo shoot, Marinette leaves the kids at her grandpa's place. Overwhelmed by all the complicated new technology, Roland is akumatized into Simpleman, whose power makes everyone in Paris think more simply. To keep it simple, this episode makes for a really fun and silly story where there isn't any proper fighting, but this intentionally anticlimactic confrontation between Simpleman and the heroes. We also get a lot of funny lines and moments, from Ladybug and Cat Noir especially.
I'm supposed to smile, but I'm also supposed to save people. This is a complicated choice.
Shadowman, we're here!
Can I just cataclysm the bad guy?
I generally hate the kids in this show, particularly the 4 featured here, but I actually really enjoyed them in this episode. The way they work to help out Ladybug and Cat Noir is super sweet, and we don't really see them acting entitled like they typically do. Although I understand why Simpleman can be a bit of an off-putting and unenjoyable episode, I don't think it deserves to be labeled as a sin, because it's a really fun premise and I think it was executed quite well. Because of this, I give Simpleman a pass. Win number 2 is season 3 episode 10, Oblivio, with a 9.3 out of 10, originally airing in the UK and Ireland on March 19th, 2019. The episode begins with Ladybug and Cat Noir in an elevator, with no memory of who they are or what they're doing there, while being hunted by a mysterious akumatized villain called Oblivio. As they try to figure out who they are and what they need to do, Adrien and Marinette work together to get their powers back and defeat the villain that took their memories, all while having a bunch of cute romantic moments together. I remember this episode being huge when it first came out, mostly due to the Love Square shenanigans, but even without the Love Square content, it would have been a fantastic episode on its premise alone. The detective aspect of them needing to work out what's going on, with the viewer discovering alongside our heroes how they ended up in this situation, is extremely enjoyable to watch. The fan service with getting to see how Ladybug and Cat Noir work together, knowing each other's identities, and being openly in love is definitely cheeky, but not unwelcome. Oblivio has a lot of iconic moments, including the appearance of Box Noir and some pretty memorable lines.
This is called psychological harassment!
What am I supposed to do with this? Make tea?
I think my only critique of this episode is the way that Cat Noir kind of harasses Ladybug by continuing to make comments about them being a cute couple despite her telling him repeatedly not to. It's my least favorite aspect of Cat Noir as a character, and for it to be a key part of this episode is kind of icky. Otherwise, there is so much to love about Oblivio, so it undoubtedly qualifies as a win for this series. The worst episode of Miraculous Ladybug, according to IMDb, is season 5 episode 27, Action, with a 5.4 out of 10, originally airing in France on September 10th, 2023. Marinette and her friends work to clean up the plastic polluting the Seine, and they notice an abundance of one particular plastic product, Morphofans produced by Gabriel Agrest, made to be used once and thrown away. They decide to confront the man behind the Morphofan production, Bertrand King, aka the King of Plastic. When that doesn't change his mind, they instead decide to hack into the news broadcast to explain how harmful plastic is to the environment. This leads Gabriel Agrest to withdraw funding from Bertrand King, causing his akumatization as the King of Plastic. Ladybug and Cat Noir defeat him, and Bertrand King changes his perspective on plastic after seeing how harmful it can be. I really don't have much to say about this episode. It just feels like an anti-plastic environmentalist PSA, and the writing feels very childish, more so than usual. It honestly makes Action feel like a season 1 episode in a bad way. King of Plastic Bertrand King feels like such a cartoonish villain beyond the realm of cartoonish that Miraculous typically operates in. There are also just a handful of weird moments, like Adrien riding on Marinette's scooter with his arms completely stiff at his sides, or this weird little cheer they do at the end of the episode. Plus this really awkward and cringy Adrianette moment that has me like, okay.
It's so beautiful that you want to keep it forever.
I do find it kind of hilarious that Bertrand King is voiced by Keith Silverstein, who also voices Monarch and Gabriel Agrest, so there's a lot of scenes of him just talking to himself.
Don't forget about our deal. Yeah, even though they're not plastic, I'll take care of their magic too.
Action is completely unenjoyable. It is purely an anti-plastic PSA, which isn't a crime, but it's not what I sit down to watch Miraculous for. The environmentalist messaging that was kind of shoehorned into Miraculous in the past couple of seasons is very jarring, and I think Action is the perfect representation of that. While I commend teaching kids to care for the environment, I agree that Action deserves to be labeled as a sin. The best episode of Miraculous Ladybug, according to IMDb, is Season 3, Episode 22, Cat Blanc, with a 9.3 out of 10, originally airing in Switzerland on November 9th, 2019. After a pep talk from her friends, Marinette decides to go right to Adrian's house to deliver a beret she made for him. When she's denied entrance by Natalie, she transforms into Ladybug to drop the present in his room. Adrian sees Ladybug as she leaves his room, resulting in him discovering that Marinette is, in fact, Ladybug. Blanc suddenly appears and sends Ladybug to the future to defeat Cat Noir, now akumatized as Cat Blanc, while she puts together the pieces of how everything went wrong. Cat Blanc is an iconic episode for several reasons, and I generally enjoy it. However, it does have a few glaring flaws that I would like to address first. My biggest issue is the way that Ladybug's identity is discovered in the first place. Marinette abuses her power as Ladybug not only to break into Adrian's room, but to be all weird, touching all his stuff, and smelling his pillow? That is incredibly weird, obsessive behavior. Like, there is nothing cute about that. Fortunately, that is the worst part of the episode, and the rest of it is pretty solid from here on out. There are a couple of moments that I kind of hate, namely Ladybug calling Cat Noir my prince, and Hawkmoth being so ready to physically abuse his son to get his Miraculous. If they were going to lean into him being an evil piece of shit, why on earth would they try to make us forgive him in Season 5? That shit pisses me off. We also don't get an explanation of how Ladybug and Cat Noir end up fighting Hawkmoth in his basement without them knowing that he is Gabriel Agreste. My guess is maybe Hawkmoth lured them there so that Adrian would see his mom and get akumatized. I don't know. But with that, let's talk about what this episode does well. I thoroughly enjoy the investigation plotline with Blanc cycling through the events and seeing how everything unfolded while we switch back and forth with Ladybug fighting Cat Blanc in the future. That pacing was really engaging and enjoyable to watch. Seeing how Adrian and Marinette getting together at the wrong time could be disastrous is actually really fascinating in retrospect. During Season 3, Marinette didn't have the confidence to stand up to Gabriel Agreste when he demands that she break up with Adrian, but by the end of Season 5, she definitely has that confidence to stand up to Gabriel, as we especially see in that final confrontation. Having the what if Adrianette plot is just fun in general. It is a bit cringy, but that's kind of what you get with Adrianette anyway. My favorite part of the episode, however, is Cat Blanc himself. They did a phenomenal job of showing how Adrian has lost his mind a little bit after destroying the world and being left in this wasteland, akumatized and alone. The expressiveness of his animation is really solid, and Bryce Papenbrook's delivery on Cat Blanc's lines is phenomenal.
You're not even listening. You don't understand. Stop it! Stop it! Stop it!
Although the lasting impact of Ladybug facing Cat Blanc isn't addressed until Season 4, I'm really glad they ended up highlighting that trauma in the way it factored into the divide between Ladybug and Cat Noir during Season 4. Cat Blanc is by no means a perfect episode, and I don't agree that it is the best episode of Miraculous because of some of its glaring flaws. However, it is an incredibly iconic and enjoyable watch, and definitely deserves to be labeled as a win for Miraculous, Tales of Ladybug, and Cat Noir. Let me know if you agree with these being the best and worst episodes of Miraculous Ladybug and which series you would like me to cover next. With the TikTok ban situation, I was going through a bunch of my old Miraculous content and found myself feeling very nostalgic for making content about the series. The very first video I posted on TikTok was episode 1 of my series called Rating Miraculous Villains, where I went through each of the akumatized villains and rated them. I'm kind of tempted to revamp that series in a more long-form format, so let me know if that's something you'd be interested in. I did watch The Illustrator, the premiere of Season 6, and I actually really enjoyed it. I do have mixed feelings about the animation, but it's definitely more positive than negative, so I'm very excited to see what the rest of Season 6 has in store. Once more episodes of Season 6 come out, I'll probably do a review of Season 6 so far, so stay tuned for that. I'm very much looking forward to seeing what this new era of Miraculous has in store. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.